This has been something that has been requested for months now. You guys know that I like total drama, so for the longest time, people have been asking me about the Ridonculous race. But before we get started, a little bit of background. I was a fan of total drama from pretty much the beginning. I loved Season 1, Season 2 was pretty good, I guess, and Season 3 was amazing. But then came the 3 island half seasons in a row. Season 4 was a bit of a mess, Season 5 was something that I personally liked, but plenty of other people hated, and Season 6 was the most disappointed I had ever been with the series. In fact, when I first heard of the Ridonculous race, I wasn't really too excited. I just thought that it was going to be more of the same and didn't take the time to watch it live. But it just kept getting requested from all sides, so I finally decided to sit down and give it a watch. And thank God, this show is back. The Ridonculous race is some of the best that Total Drama has gotten ever. If it's not just as good as Total Drama World Tour, it's a close second. This really was just a breath of fresh air, a huge relief at seeing the show going back to its roots. By the way, this review will have some minor spoilers. Don't fall behind, this is Total Drama Presents The Ridonculous Race. The whole format of the show changes in the Ridonculous race. So far, the contestants were competing for themselves only, and they were almost always eliminated with voting. Here, the contestants compete in teams of 2, and the teams that get sent home are the ones that come in last that day. One huge improvement is that this gets rid of the contestants that have no right to be there right off the bat. For example, Leonard from Pacateo Island is back with some other girl, Tammy. At least this time they're presented as LARPers and not delusional idiots. Okay, well, mainly just LARPers. However, Leonard is about as good at competition as he ever was, and I don't think anybody's heart was broken when they got sent home first. On the flip side of all of this, there is less of the drama among the contestants since there isn't any voting. However, I think that's not much compared to all the welcome changes that this season brings. The biggest problems with seasons 4, 6, and to a lesser extent 5 was that the core of the show went from see how real and believable these characters are to see how wacky these situations are. That definitely does get better with the Ridonculous race. With a few exceptions, this is the least that I've had to stretch my suspension of disbelief since at least Season 3. The cast includes 2 newly made stepbrothers that hate each other, 2 partner police cadets, a father and son that don't seem to interact nearly enough, and 2 best friends, one of which has a crush on the other that was never really brought up. They play around with some stereotypes, but it's done in a much smarter way than some past seasons. Considering that there are 36 contestants, the biggest cast yet, it would seem hard to develop all of them, but they managed surprisingly well. The focus is more on how the relationships are among the partners, but there's also room for relationships among teams. Also, the development is given to pretty much everybody, and not to mostly just a few, which is what happened in Seasons 4, 5, and 6. Some of my favorite teams include Team Friendzone, as I like to call them, the father and son team, and the sisters. But by far, my favorite team is the police cadet team. This is almost entirely because of MacArthur, bar none the funniest character in the history of the series. This woman is amazing and one of the best parts of the entire show. The villains this time around are a duo of ice dancers who are sort of silly but also pretty funny.
So, as a Canadian ice dancing team, you probably hear this a lot. 3rd place!
They just start out weird, but they get more and more competitive, cheating at almost every step. By the way, there are a few characters from previous seasons that also return. Besides Leonard, there's also Jeff, who brought his friend Brody. I would have preferred Bridget, but maybe if she was on the show it would be even more obvious than it already is that she and Carrie from Team Friendzone are played by the same person.
That was... I was just... Okay, I love him! I've loved him since we were 4 and he peed in my turtle pool. I mean, that's not why I love him, that's just when it started.
There's also Noah and Owen again. I personally have never really been a fan of Owen, and he is up to his usual antics here, but Noah does balance him out pretty well. One of the biggest things that separates this from any previous shows by Total Drama is the diversity in terms of character types. The previous seasons had casts that were all close in age, and at the beginning at least didn't know each other very well. The most that this ever got shaken up was with Amy and Sammy, and look how freaking well that turned out. But here it's actually done very well. There aren't just friends and daters, there are parents, siblings, co-workers, old rivals. This allows the character development to expand in ways that were never possible before. Another notable thing is that this show actually managed to surprise me every once in a while. There was this goth team that I thought was going to go home early, but they made it much further than I could have ever predicted. Also, there was a boyfriend-girlfriend team that started out lovey-dovey and mushing and annoying, but then they just start hating each other. And I mean like really, really hate each other. And it's gradual too. Then there's the sister team. Right off of the bat, the older one is really mean to the younger one. I was seriously afraid that we were going to end up with another Amy and Sammy, but thankfully that goes away soon enough. Then there's Team Friendzone, which I thought was just going to be stagnant the entire time, sort of like Mike and Zoe in Season 4, but there's plenty of development in that storyline. I think that a lot of the strengths from this spin-off come from the fact that they have time. Considering what the show is, total drama isn't really something that can be done to the fullest in only 13 episodes. It needs more, and the Ridonculous race is proof of that. Don't get me wrong, there were also definitely some characters and teams that I didn't like. Leonard was about as useful as ever, and there were a few teams that were a little too repetitive, kind of like the Rockers, or the Step Brothers, or the Tennis Rivals. But my least favorite character is definitely the daughter in the mother-daughter team, Taylor. They're supposed to be like Regina George and her mom, I guess, but Regina doesn't even come close to being as much of a spoiled brat as Taylor. They stayed around about as long as I expected them to. Here's something that I never really got with these shows, and it doesn't really get any better, so I might as well bring it up now. It's about the interviews/confessionals that happen on the show. It never really made sense to me why the confessionals can happen right in the middle of challenges, since they all take place in one location and take time the contestants should not have. Now that I mention it, there's also the fact that only one person uses it at a time, so I wonder if there's ever a line. That's actually kind of funny to imagine. This whole situation just gets worse with this show, since the contestants are on a time crunch at any given moment. The show does help things along by making some of the confessionals happen on site, but there's still a room where plenty of them happen. I just never really got it. Besides an almost entirely new cast of characters, the Ridonculous race also has a new host, named Dawn. The fact that there is a new host at all is a plus, since Chris's sadism got old fast, and it wasn't even really that funny to begin with. Dawn really just seems like a normal host type. Not too mean, not too friendly, sort of arrogant, but not too much so. I personally thought he was great. After 6 seasons straight of Chris McClain, it was nice to finally have a host that was comfortable with just being a host. It gives more time to focus on the competitors, which is what matters anyway. Dawn is also much more aware of cheating than Chris is, which means that he notices it at all. Teams that cheat are given time penalties, which is the reason why some of the teams are sent packing. I also like the variety of the challenges presented. Like I said before about World Tour, there really is only so much that can be done when stuck at one location. But things change up all the time when the competition goes all over the world. Speaking of which, I'm actually pretty surprised at how accurate this show is. There were many occasions where they brought up something that I was sure wasn't actually a thing, but then I looked it up and found out that it was. This show taught me about chicken buses, noodling, and how filthy, stinking rich Dubai is. This show taught me some things, and I did not expect that. This is small, but I also want to bring up the locals. Most of the time there are locals who play small roles in challenges. They don't say anything, but the way that they react is absolute comedy gold. While we're on that subject, the comedy in this show is great. Here's why. It has something that is becoming harder and harder to find. Subtlety. Just take this for example, when the hippie vegan team does a challenge that involves speaking another language.
Travel out bending. Yay, thanks. I had to get it right. I didn't want to be culturally insensitive. Yeah, that's how wars start. And war is bad.
I laughed hard at that. By the way, since they're in Iceland, I guess that she's supposed to be Bjork. Kind of an obscure joke, especially considering what this show's target audience is, but hey, it was kind of funny. Hey, there's comedy for all sorts of demographics and ages. But I actually do enjoy when a character says something really, really stupid and has no idea, which is all over this show.
Whoa, you'd think something that had been around for 1,000,000 years would know how to take a punch, am I right?
For a skinny tower, there sure are a lot of floors.
To be completely honest with you, I wasn't exactly looking forward to reviewing the Ridonculous race. That's because it is so much harder to write positive reviews. However, since I really don't hate everything, it's necessary to use my critical skills to talk about things that I like. And if there was a cartoon that deserved a full-length positive review lately, it was this one. I really hope that this show sets the standard for total drama in the future. Thank you all for recommending it, and thank you all for being patient. I'll see you guys next time on the show with no name.